What is the difference between weather and climate? Weather is the short-term condition of the atmosphere in a given location. The key here is that we are talking about the short term. Weather describes what's happening right here, right now. Here are some examples of statements that describe the weather. It's raining outside. That's describing the weather because it's explaining what's happening right here, right now. It's freezing. That's the weather. The wind is really blowing. That's the weather. Such a foggy night. That's the weather. Finally, it's hot today. That also describes the weather. Keep in mind, the weather can be anything on any given day, and while we do see patterns in which we will talk about shortly, weather can fluctuate greatly. For examples, in January, in New York City, it's generally cold. But on any given day in January, we could have 78 or 80 degree Fahrenheit weather in New York. It would be strange, but that's the weather. It's a snapshot of what's happening right here, right now. Climate. On the other hand, climate is long-term average condition of the atmosphere for a location. The key here is that climate is long-term. It's a snapshot of what we expect to see in a location based on many years of data that has been accumulated and studied and averaged out. So, it gives you a picture of what to expect for a particular location. Though, it's important to keep in mind that the day-to-day weather could be just about anything. Here are some examples of statements that describe the climate of a particular area. It's hot and humid in the Amazon. That's an example of climate. It's not always hot and humid in Amazon, but on average, that's what we expect to see there. Or if we were to say the South Pole is extremely cold and dry, generally that's true, but certainly there are days where it's not true. The Sahara is arid. Yes, the Sahara Desert is generally very arid and dry, but it does rain there from time to time. New York City gets cold in winter again. That's true. But We could have a warm day in January in New York. Finally, India experiences monsoon season in July. What that means? Is it usually is very wet and rainy in July in India? But that doesn't mean every minute of every day in July will always be wet. So, to sum up, weather is what's happening outside right here, right now, while climate is what usually happens here during this time of the year. Climate of a place is affected by its distance from the equator, means latitude, altitude, distance from the sea, winds, and human activities. Let us study each of the factors one by one. Latitude. The earth is divided exactly into half by an imaginary line called the equator. Latitude denotes a region of the earth in relation to its distance from the equator. As the area of the earth below the Tropic of Cancer are near to the equator, they experience high temperature and very hot. This is because the sun rays fall directly on the equator. The area of the earth near the north and south poles get slanting rays of the sun and are thus cooler. Lower the latitude, higher the temperature, and higher the latitude, lower the temperature. So, latitude of a place affects its climate. Altitude. Another factor responsible for the change in climate of a place is its altitude. Altitude refers to the height of a place above the sea level. Places located on high altitudes, that is, on hills or mountains like Shimla, Srinagar, and Ooty, are cooler than places in the plains like Lucknow and Allahabad. Mountains can change or even stop winds and rainfall and hence affect climate. Distance from the sea. The climate of a place is also affected by its distance from the sea. If a place is near the sea, the climate is moderate, means there is no drastic change in the weather throughout the year. But as we move further from the sea, such as Mumbai and Chennai, experience less variation in temperature than the places far away from the sea, which tend to have extreme climates with very hot summer and very cold winters. Wind. The climate of a place depends on whether the wind blowing there is cold, hot, humid, or dry. Wind that blows from the sea often bring rains to the coast and dry weather to inland areas. Human activities. Human activities also influence the climate of a place, such as industrialization. A very large quantity of fossil fuels is utilized by the industries. The use of fossil fuels is responsible for increasing carbon dioxide concentration in the atmosphere, thereby causing acid rain and pollution. Deforestation means large-scale cutting of trees. Large-scale cutting of trees results in an increased amount of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. This increased carbon dioxide in the atmosphere causes an increase in the temperature of the atmosphere, thereby affecting the climate.